Next speaker is Serena.
Hello, everyone. I will share my presentation and you will tell me if you see it well.
Okay.
Okay, and I have to say that a really interesting presentation by now, so I'm really glad to be here and also present the experience of LIFE GoProForMed project. I'm from Dream Italia, which is a Italian forest private cooperative that deals with conservation issues of forest biodiversity. And in this case, we are the leader of this LIFE project. So I be fast because these are challenges that our Mediterranean forest faces, and that has already been mentioned by Jose and by also the other speakers. So we know that Mediterranean forests are really vulnerable to many pressures and threats that are also linked to the climate change, but also to poor management and the conservation status of forest habitats protected by the Habitat Directive are mainly inadequate or largely unknown or even poor. And as already mentioned, our forests, there's this trend to be too much homogeneous, young, very dense, and all these simplified elements make them vulnerable to climate change, but also less favorable to biodiversity. And biodiversity conservation and climate change adaptation are in synergies. I mean, working on conserving habitats and their biodiversity in a way improves at the same time also their resilience to forest to climate changes. So within our project, we choose only 4 target habitats that you can see here. So cork, elm forest, ormo forest, chestnut, and pine forest. But just these 4 habitats together, as they are really widespread and representative, working on them, the impact can be really significant at the Mediterranean level. So we choose them also because they have not a good conservation status. And with the project, the main aim is to improve their conservation status at the level of the Mediterranean biogeographical region by establish transnational conservation strategies. In fact, in this project, we involved 4 different countries of the Mediterranean area. And the main aim is also to find management models and for the conservation and management of these habitats, and along with the involvement of stakeholders, managers and owners that need to be supported in all the opportunities and methods that can be put in place to manage forests. So in the project, we have 12 project sites that are spread in the 4 countries. And the project lasts 6 years, and it will end at 2028. There is a wide partnership. Dream is coordinating the team, but we have partners from management that have really different, let's say, expertise, both technical, science, and manager aspects. So these are the key challenges that the project face, and with the action lines that he put in place. So all revolves around this definement of models in the Mediterranean area that should follow the principle of closer to nature forest that we know that is more common and widespread in the Central and Northern Europe, but the project was to want to adapt closer to nature principle to the Mediterranean forest. And so the main line of the project are the harmonization at the first step, as a first step of indicators, tool, approaches, and to apply procedures that can be of planning that should be shared and standardized. And then also within the project, all these models, all these procedures are put in place and demonstrate in demonstration plots in order to be a model, concrete one. And at the end, all of the output of the project should be transferred and to all the sector of conservation and forest management in order to go beyond the life of the project. So by now we are in the middle point of the project, almost at the middle point. So we have focused on the first lines of action. So in the planning and harmonization, and we are now facing the concrete part of the work. So to put in place all that we have planned, and the next step and challenge will be the transfer of everything. So I have to say that, of course, we have a wide partnership and different expertise. So different tasks have been led by different partners. So I'm just, let's say, a representative, and I won't go too much into detail of really technical things that I'm not the expert for. So the main aim here today is just to show you all the activity that has been done and that can be an opportunity in this context. So the Department of Biology of the University of Sapienza, as a first, let's say, action, was the one of collecting data of biodiversity data on taxonomic group and dendrometric data, structural data of forest, the application of the index of biodiversity potential, and the elaboration of all of this information in order with the aim to assess the effectiveness of 3 microhabitat as biodiversity indicators, and to validate 3 microhabitat and the index of biodiversity potential in assessing habitat quality, and also to identify which structure of the stand and the elements that can support a favorable conservation status. And I have to say that 3 microhabitats are an element that is coming more and more important and are characteristic of a tree that can host single species or entire community of animals. So these are really important structures for biodiversity. So just some results, really simple, that came out from the correlation of all of these data. So, for example, one finding was that 3 microhabitat is more important in some cases, their abundance and not their diversity, and that the canopy cover within 50 and 70% favor habitat diagnostic species, and that, of course, that is important, but it's also important it's a stage of decay for some of the subproxylate arthropods. So let's say these are general findings that will feed the next step of the planning of intervention for sure. Another thing, always led by the University of Sapienza, was the implementation of a field manual for the recognition of habitat and for the assessment of their conservation status. Because there are manuals for this at European level and at country level, but we wanted something more, let's say, practical and easy to use, not only for experts, let's say, but also for people that operate in forest. And so using the data collected before and also data from literature, the manual was implemented with, for each of the target habitat, a list of common diagnostic species and quantitative parameters with benchmark and threshold that help in assessing easily the conservation status of the habitat target. And also the partner from France, the CNPF, which is the main expert of the method of IBP, which is an index that can evaluate the potential of the forest to host biodiversity in a really simple way by evaluating 10 factors. This partner promotes the adaptation of this method also to Spain and Greece. And maybe this map is not really updated because this method, meanwhile, it has been adapted also to Switzerland and to Croatia and some other countries that I don't remember. But the aim is to have another approach that can be used widely at the level of the biogeographic Mediterranean region. And this is in progress, and it will be finished by the end of this year. So all this output coming from this first part of the project, for sure, go in support to the other line of the project, that is the planning of procedures in a standardized way, with the double aim, double line of action, the one of conserve biodiversity and the one of planning for reduce their fire risk. So the conservation of the biodiversity within the project and within the habitat target is it revolves around the implementation of an ecological network that focus with the focus of conserved biodiversity and to improve and preserve the key structural elements for the habitat functionality. So the network is composed by different elements such as core area, which are the best biodiverse area of the forest, of the habitats, biodiversity island, which are other patches of forest that can be improved and that are linked to the core area in order to allow species movements. And finally, habitat trees, which are trees that bear microhabitats and that are other elements that increase the link among these areas. So for each of the steps of the implementation of the ecological network, the planning procedures have been standardized in protocols, have been applied in the 12 project sites, and then have been also refined with improvement based on the experience done concretely. So for each of these steps, there's a protocol, and for the identification of all the elements, how to link them, and also how to characterize the island of biodiversity, because while core area are not subject to intervention, island of biodiversity could be in order to increase their functionality. And these are just the protocol that I mentioned before. So intervention in island of biodiversity can be done if it's needed to. So the characterization helps to understand the initial condition of these areas. And if intervention are needed, they follow these 7 objectives. Intervention type are of low intensity selective thinning, and all in these areas, all the trees cut or girdled are let in place in order to increase the amount of lying and standing deadwood. And as you can see, intensity is very low, but is even lower on mature biodiversity island, because they don't need any improvement, or in too young stand patch, because it's maybe too early to make any intervention. So the most of the intervention can be done in the adult and regular stand in order to match that 7 objectives. And passing up through the planning for the wild risk, fire risk mitigation. This action is led by the University of Torino, the Department of Forest Science, and they are really specialists in the fire issue. So the challenge was to find the trade-off among mitigation action and conservation measures that we have implemented. And these have to be done at 2 levels, so at the landscape scale and at the stand scale. So the aim is to find the best trade-off among these 2 aspects. So before going on, the preventive infrastructure are of 2 types. So the one that prevent the fire to reach the element that we want to protect, like shaded fuel break, or the other one is all that intervention that can enhance the self resistance of the stand. So once that the fire has reached, unfortunately, the element that we want to protect, which kind of intervention can prevent to make too much damage to this stand. So at the landscape scale, the problem to solve, let's say, is that usually we have a fixed budget for make intervention treated area in order to make them less burnable. And so the problem is to give the right distribution of this intervention in order to protect the elements that we want to prioritize. And so the goal is to find a method to make this strategic planning that consider the trade-off among all these ecosystem services that we want to preserve. And so it was make a analysis risk model in order to combine fire hazard and vulnerability of the ecosystem services to fire. And the University of Torino developed indicator that help to evaluate all of this scenario in order to find which was the best one, and the trade-off worked really well. And at the stand scale level, the problem is that if we have to intervene in the elements of the ecological network, where to intervene, so if outside to protect them or inside, but in this case, which kind of intervention are consistent with the other intervention that we did for the ecological network. So it was set a method in order to evaluate these synergies or conflict. And it was done by implementing a protocol, a decision tree, based on 6 steps and on the fire species ecology. And I have to mention that all of this was done just on 2 habitats, so the chestnut forest and the pine forest, and not in all of the 4 habitats. So I'm almost at the end. This was related to biodiversity conservation and fire mitigation. But once that we have managed the habitat in this way, what shall we do with the rest of the surface of the forest area? So the project defined models that in this case want to be more attentive not only to biodiversity and conservation and reduction of fire risk, but also to the economical aspect of the management. So the objective, of course, is try to find a structure of the forest that can enhance and reach all these objectives, so from the protection, but also to the production. And this is done based on the condition of the forest, so different conditions like the fertility, the stem maturity, and the condition of the forest stand, and intervention can be adapted to 6 criteria. So these are also standardized in protocols for so having indication for each habitat type and each of these conditions, and this is now in action. So this will be tested in all of the 12 sites in the demonstrative plot of 1 hectare, testing different theses that meet all of these aspects. So in conclusion, okay, we are not at the end of the project. We have really a long road to run again, but up to now, our, let's say, keyword, the keyword of the project is the applicability. So the protocol and standardized procedure are really meant to be clear and apply and applicable, also with the common indicators and easy to use tools and approach, but also in terms of cost. Because, for example, if you consider that on 2,500 hectares of habitat surface, the conservation effort is done only on a part of the habitat surface in the ecological network, and not all of the biodiversity island, but just on a part. So the effort is of 13%, and this allows to protect a really wide extension of areas. And all that have been done for biodiversity, for sure, has the same as effect on the adaptation of forest to the climate change. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Serena.